All right, hey everybody, this is Rosh, and you're watching AxeFX Basics. This is a YouTube tutorial series that I'm putting together to help new and experienced users program all their Fractal products, including the AxeFX3, the FM3, and the FM9. If you'd like to see other tutorials, please visit the rest of this YouTube channel, or you can check them out at axefxbasics.com, fm9basics.com, and fm3basics.com. So a little about myself. Once again, my name is Rosh, and I'm a guitar player and a guitar tech out here in the Los Angeles area. I build and program a lot of guitar rigs for a lot of different clients, including some of my clients include Steve Vai, Leppard, Melissa Etheridge, A Perfect Circle, Bush, and more. And I wanted to give back to the Fractal community and show some tips and tricks on how to program all their Fractal units. And in this case, this is going to be for the AxeFX3, but this is going to be actually a pretty universal tutorial. You can do this with the FM3 or the FM9 as well. So one of the most common things that I get asked by my clients pretty recently is how to use one expression pedal to control two or multiple effects. So for example, let's say in a scenario, you want to be able to use your expression pedal to control a wah, and then you also want to be able to control a whammy. And in this case, the whammy is usually in the pitch block. So you only have one expression pedal, and then you want to be able to somehow toggle between these two effects. How do you turn them on and off, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a pretty common scenario. I do this in most of my presets as well. Most of the time I use two expression pedals, one that's dedicated specifically to volume, and then the other one is a global expression pedal, and depending on which preset I'm using, it's going to control wah or whammy, or sometimes I use it to kind of do a fake pedal steel thing, or sometimes I use it to do a Univibe or control the rotary block. So in this tutorial, that's what we're going to be covering. And again, you can do this in any of the Fractal units, the FM3, the FM9, or the AxeFX3. So let's go to quick build, and we are going to build a quick preset. This isn't going to be much of a tone building preset, but you know, we'll just build some basic rock sound. So I have the input and output block, the amp and cab block, and a reverb. I'm going to click this O, connect the shunts, and then I'm also going to click here and click this O and connect this reverb. And again, if you've watched some of my other tutorials, I tend to run all my time-based effects in parallel. This is just so that I can have independence between my delays and reverbs, etc. So when you're running in parallel, you want to have your mix set to 100%. The bypass mode should be mute in, so that there are trails from when you bypass the block, as well as bypassing the block will not reduce or boost your output level. So I'm going to go to about -6. That usually seems to be a pretty go-to reverb kind of standard thing. And let's title this two effects. Let's say, I don't know, one expression pedal tutorial. Okay, great. So we'll save this, and let's quickly build like a rock sound. Let's use like a Marshall Plexi, and I'll use the jump, and let's go with some pretty standard cab block. Now, with most Marshall sounds, I tend to use the pre-rolla greenbacks. These sound really great for a very classic Marshall sound. In this case, I'll use the 57. Of course, there are a bunch of different 57s in here. I'll just pick the first one, and I'll go with my go-to settings. I usually low cut around 80, because you don't need all that rumble and low end in there. And then I'm gonna actually slope this pretty aggressively. So the slope right here dictates how quickly the EQ slopes down from 80 hertz. Now, it's not a full cutoff at 80 hertz, but it kind of tapers down. So a less aggressive slope, like a smaller number, will be more gradual versus a more aggressive slope. In this case, with like rock stuff, I usually might be palm muting or something. I don't want any of that low end rumble in there. And of course, I'm going to go down to about 8,000 hertz. That's usually a good starting point. And again, I'm going to also do a pretty aggressive slope. So a little about this high cut right here. You can go even lower to get a darker, smoother tone, as well as, you know, taking out some of that pick attack and that high sparkle in the in your tone. One of the great Fractal users, if you go to the Fractal's Gift of Tone. Larry Mitchell released some of his presets, and he low cuts all the way down to 5,000 hertz. I'm super grateful that I can call him a friend. He's a really great player, really great power user of all the Fractal products, and he goes all the way down to 5,000 hertz. So it's not like it's going to be too dark, but it, you know, gives you the ability to, when you boost the volume, you're only boosting the mid-range of, you know, the sonic spectrum. So we'll do somewhere around 7,000. If it's too bright, we can pull that down. So, all right, now with the Marshall Plexi, usually these two drives are very interactive. The normal drive is kind of this bassy kind of distortion sound. So you hear it's pretty woofy down there, as opposed to the treble drive, which is kind of more upper mid-rangey. And then the blending of these two can give you like a full kind of distorted sound. Usually with most of the Plexis, I dump the bass to keep the low end nice and tight. And then I'll usually pump the mids and the treble, bring down a little bit of presence. As you know, I'm just kind of doing this by ear. Probably bring this up a little bit more. Okay, sounds pretty good. Let's use that as a starting point. Now you'll notice that it's very mid-rangey and very spiky. So of course we want to round it out with a ribbon mic. And now again, I will use the pre-roller right here. And let's use the 121. And instantly you hear that it smooths out the top end of the tone, but the low end is a little woofy. So you can, of course, low cut here. And these EQs allow you to low cut and high cut individual blocks if you're blending a couple different blocks together. In this case, I'll low cut maybe even to 100, somewhere around there. I'll bring that down a little bit. Okay, cool. And then I'll bring this down a little bit. Yeah, it sounds pretty good. Let's bring the treble down just a hair. Okay, it sounds pretty good. Pretty generic, in a good way, Marshall sound. So if you find this tone a little bright, again, I usually dial in my sounds so that they sound really good live. So I have my tone knob all the way full up. You can, of course, dial it back to get kind of a warmer sound. And I find that, you know, the extra brightness helps cut through the mix a little bit better. So I might bring back a little bit of treble. Yeah, it sounds pretty good. Actually, let's see if we can find a better 57. So I'm gonna click this push pin. Let's see if we can go through these 57s. And the push pin allows you to select them without this menu going away. So. Yeah, I like that one. It's a lot warmer. Yeah, sounds pretty good. All right, so we got our bass tone. And now the key is that you want to have both effects that you're going to be using the expression pedal for in parallel. And then I'll explain this in just a second. So for example, let's hypothetically say you want the same expression pedal to control the wah and to control the pitch block, which is usually, or I'm sorry, the whammy, which is found in the pitch block, and you can find it here. So for example, this is your classic like whammy pedal, you know, and then this is like classic wah pedal. Now, the first thing you're going to need to do is, of course, find this little icon, this little circle right here. And this allows you to adjust the control of any effect that has that icon. And then you can also tie it to an expression pedal. You can tie it to the envelope filter. You can tie it to a lot of different things. So in this case, since I don't have anything tied to this yet, the wah pedal is basically like all the way down to 0. And it's going to have that kind of like heel down, toe up kind of sound. And then of course, you know, if you set it somewhere here. So obviously you want to be able to control that with your expression pedal. So the first thing we're going to do is, and again, any parameter that has that little icon you can control with an expression pedal. So here in the amp block, if I wanted to adjust how much gain the amp has, I can do that with an expression pedal, etc. Or, the level of the reverb, the time, etc. In this case, for this tutorial, we're going to be doing it with a wah. So I'm on a Mac, I'm going to be using Control and then click. You can, of course, right-click this if you're using a mouse. You can right-click this if you're using a PC. And then it's going to first ask you for the source. In my case, I'm going to use pedal 1, and the only reason for this is that my expression pedal is currently plugged into the pedal 1 jack on the back of my AxeFX3. If you're using a foot controller, for example, the FC6 or the FC12, you want to make sure that this number, pedal 1, matches with where your expression pedal is currently plugged into. So in the back of the FC12, there's 4 expression jacks. You can, of course, plug your preferred expression pedal into any one of those jacks. Just make sure the number matches. The FC2 pedal 1 is if you're daisy chaining multiple foot controllers, like using a FC12, on stage when you're playing, and then maybe if you have a guitar tech doing some of your switching, he may have an FC12, backstage or whatever. Or if you just have 2 foot controllers, maybe you have 2 FC6s, maybe 2 FC12s. There's a lot of different options. In my case, since I don't have my FC12 plugged into my AxeFX3 right now, I just plugged right into the back of the AxeFX3 into the pedal 1 jack. Now, if you're using the FM3 or the FM9, you'll also find that the pedal jacks are going to be saying here, and then you're going to find some other options for that. But again, the way to think about this is just match the number with the pedal. So pedal 1 is where it is, and now you can see that if I move the pedal up and down, you'll see that little ball move right here. And then a couple things I want to change is that if I just tie the expression pedal to the wah, I can of course control it. But you see that it doesn't turn off. Now, in this case, I am using a Roland EV5 expression pedal. This is like a really great expression pedal that I like because it's plastic, it's lightweight, it already has a TRS cable attached to it. I do a lot of fly gigs, a lot of traveling. If you're gigging a lot, this pedal can be really great because it's super lightweight. It also fits in, a backpack, a gig bag, whatever. And they're pretty affordable. And again, since I'm using this EV5, there's no toe switch attached. So I'm not gonna do this standard thing like most Dunlop wahs are, where you can push down on the toe switch to activate this. In this case, what I'm doing is I'm actually going to use the auto engage feature. And of course, so I go back into the modifier menu by right-clicking it or control-clicking it, and then you'll find this auto engage feature. Depending on what firmware you're using or what unit you're using, you may find the auto engage feature down here in the bottom right corner instead of the left, but they function exactly the same way. I'm gonna actually turn this on. Now, there are a lot of different parameters here, and I'll go over them in a future video, but the ones I tend to use are either medium position or medium speed. So medium position means that the pedal will, the effect will turn on when it senses that the expression pedal is moving a certain distance. In this case, like a medium amount of distance versus a larger distance would be slow position, and then a small distance would be the fast position. So I'll just do medium position for now. So for example, if I move the expression pedal, just a little bit, it's going to sense that it's moving, and then it will engage. So you can see here, I'm going to move the pedal a little bit, and then the wah turns on. And then, of course, in this modifier menu, the off value is going to dictate that when it senses that the expression pedal is all the way below 5%, it will turn off the effect. So in this case, my toe is up, my heel is back, and then the pedal or the effect turns off. Now, some people may want the reverse, where the toe is all the way forward. That means it's toe forward, heel up, or toe down, heel up. So the pedal is all the way in the forward position. So you can see that the ball is here, and then this will also turn the effect off. And then when you move it, the effect will turn back on. So these are two different options. Some of my clients will definitely like this feature because all I have to do is press down on the pedal like a gas pedal, floor it, and then it turns the effect on. And then when they manipulate the pedal, it'll turn back off. I prefer the opposite, where I like the off value at 5%. so that when the pedal's like all the way, no gas, you know, you're not pressing down on the pedal, you press on the back of the pedal and it turns the effect off. Now, there's a couple things we want to keep in mind. Again, we're trying to tie one expression pedal to two effects. So in this case, in the pitch block, I found the classic whammy, and I want to tie the expression pedal to this as well. So of course, I'm going to pick the same pedal. I'm going to also pick the same auto engage feature. And you'll see that when I move the expression pedal, both of these effects turn on. And then they turn off. And you can see I'm manipulating the control of both effects, as you can see. So pedals are off, or I'm sorry, the effect is off when the pedal's all the way back, and then the pedal's on when I'm manipulating the pedal. And of course, with the whammy, same thing. Where you set the off value determines when the effect turns on and off, depending on where the pedal is positioned. Now, one thing to keep in mind before we move on from this is, of course, the PC reset. I tend to prefer this on, and so that when the patch loads, or this preset loads, that it just loads these effects in the off position as long as you save them in the off position. All right, now two things we're gonna need to do is we're gonna go in the scene manager right here, and let's just say that one scene we wanna use the wah, and the other scene we wanna use the whammy. So I'm gonna name these two scenes separately so that when you're looking on your unit or you're looking at your foot controller, you can tell that either the wah or the pitch block are on, or that it reminds you rather that, okay, when I'm on scene 1, moving the expression pedal is gonna turn on the wah, and then when I'm on scene 2, moving the expression pedal is gonna turn on the whammy. Now, the key to this, of course, is you're probably wondering, okay, well, how do I get to select between these two? So first what we're gonna do is I'm gonna hit the O, connect it to the pitch block, hit the O again, connect it to the original shunt. And here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the multiplexer block. So of course you can access that by using the quick build, using the M-plex right here, or you can go to the block menu, insert multiplexer, or you can right click on the box that you want. I'm using the right click or control click, and I'm adding the multiplexer there. 3 different ways to get there, but same thing. Now the multiplexer block is a really great block to use when you're using effects in parallel like this and you want to select between different ones. I go in a different tutorial about using the multiplexer block to select between 2 amp blocks to do gapless switching. But the key to this, if you haven't watched those tutorials, is that the multiplexer takes input from a certain row or a certain input block or even the USB. In this case, we're going to be taking input from a certain row. And it has 6 rows here, which correspond to these 6 rows. So you have row 1, row 2, row 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, because this is taking input from row 1, but we don't have anything connected there, you're going to hear that nothing is going on. Okay, and if we selected row 2, same thing, because there's no audio being sent through row 2. However, if we go to row 3, this is row 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to get input from the wah. And the thing is, we have the wah bypass right now, but again, remember we set up the auto engage feature for the wah. So what you're going to hear is the input is only coming from row 3, which is this effect right here. So you'll notice that the wah is only being fed into the multiplexer. If the multiplexer block wasn't there, for example, I'll just put a shunt right there for a second, and I turned on both of these effects, you'll notice that the wah is turning on, but also the whammy is turning on and being fed into that. I'll put up 2 octaves so you can hear that it's kind of, and you hear that it's like a wah sound blended in with a whammy sound. We don't want that. We definitely want to be able to pick between the two. So I'll add the multiplexer back in. And so it's selecting row 3. Now, if we want the whammy sound, we want it to come from row 1, 2, 3, 4. So of course we can select row 4 for that. And you'll notice this becomes the whammy now. And then again, if we want to get the wah sound, we select row 3. So now the next step, of course, is to tie these to the different scenes. Now, the cool thing is this multiplexer block has 6 channels. So channel A is going to be coming in from input number 3. Or I'm sorry, row number 3, not input number 3, row number 3. And then what we're going to do is the next channel, we are actually going to get row number 4 being fed into this. So think of this multiplexer block as like a fancy A/B switch. So the A channel is feeding the wah effect into this and ignoring this effect. So here's the wah. And then of course, if I switch channels, now it's going to be the pitch block. Okay, so what we want to do is, of course, we want to tie the channel A into the wah, and then we want to tie channel B into the whammy scene. So you can do this. I tend to write it down, maybe put it in parentheses or something, just as I'm programming my presets, and then you can rename these later. The other thing is in the scene manager, you can, of course, go to the multiplexer block and see which channel is being fed into the multiplexer block and then dictate which one you want. So for example, you'll see that the wah channel right here. Now if we switch to the whammy scene, okay. So this is, again, a way to get a couple effects being fed and selecting between them. Now, I'm doing this with scenes. You can, of course, tie 2 different channels. You can, set up a controller, a switch on your foot controller to go between channel A and B. You can, of course, you can see this little expression right here. You can, of course, tie another expression pedal if you want to, to switch between the 2. So I've seen that done. You use like a little foot switch to tap, turn on between the 2. Or you can even tie this to like the toe switch of an expression pedal, so it'll switch between the 2. There's a lot of different options. I find that this is probably the easiest because, again, I can look at this, what scene I'm on, and if I see the word wah on the scene, I'm like, oh, right, my expression pedal is going to be controlling the wah. And then if I see in scene 2, the whammy is going to be tied to the expression pedal. Now, this isn't just limited to 2 effects. You can do up to 6 effects in a row like this. Obviously, that might get a little crazy to remember which one you're doing, but again, the options there. So for example, there is a Univibe pedal out there, I think, or is it called the Rotovibe? And I think it's made by Dunlop. And again, so we're gonna pick the vibe and we find this little parameter right here. And I'm going to tie that to the same pedal. I'm gonna turn on auto engage, program reset, and then you'll see that when I turn on the expression pedal, all 3 effects are going to turn on. Now I'm going to connect this. And again, let's say I have a 3rd scene here, and we'll call this a Roto Vibe. We want a separate channel for this for the multiplexer block. And this time, you'll see that the Roto Vibe is being fed into the multiplexer block on row number 2. So we have the wah coming in from row number 3. We have the whammy coming on row number 4. And then when we go to the Roto Vibe, we want to make sure that we select row number 2 right here. So I'm going to pick row number 2. And then this is going to control the speed of the Roto Vibe. Obviously, only when I turn it on, you might be playing a song. And then you want to turn on the Roto Vibe. I've also seen this done with a Rotary. So for example, you take the Rotary block right here, and again, we're going to do the same thing where we want this tied to our expression pedal, in my case, pedal 1, medium position, on, and then we're going to connect the shunts. Same concept, same idea, and this time we want Rotary, and we want that on a separate channel, A, B, C, and D. So again, when we're in the Rotary channel, we want to make sure that we're coming in on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we want to make sure that the channels match. So channel D, row number 5. This can be all sorted out in the scene manager. Right here, I'm selecting the multiplexer, and I just want to make sure that these channels match. This should be channel C. Let me double check that that is correct. Channel C is coming from row number 2. And then this is channel B. This is the pitch, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then lastly, this should be row 3. All right, so we got row number 3 going into the multiplexer for the wah. We got the whammy coming on row number 4. We got the Rotivibe coming in row number 2. And of course, we got the Rotary coming in on row number 5. So if I'm on this scene, and my amp block switched, I want to make sure that's channel A. Great. So of course the Rotary. So this can be useful for if you're playing something like Black Hole Sun by Soundgarden. You can get these, that kind of rotary effect that's happening in the verses. And of course, on a simple switch of the scene, now the wah is going to be played. And if I'm on this scene, the whammy pedal. And then scene number 3 is going to have the Rotivibe. So don't be distracted or concerned if all 4 effects are turning on. It doesn't affect the DSP or anything. You'll see that the effect is, and again, because you're using the multiplexer block, only one of these sounds is being fed at a time. You're not getting 2 effects stacked on top of each other. But it's a really useful way to have one expression pedal control multiple effects. So if you ever look at my personal presets, you'll see that I have usually a wah, a pitch, sometimes a rotary, all being fed into a multiplexer block. So my one expression pedal can control everything. So that's going to wrap it up for this tutorial. I hope it was very helpful. If you need any one-on-one help for programming any of your presets on any of the Fractal products, such as the FM3, the FM9, or the AxeFX3, I do one-on-one consulting sessions. Feel free to get in touch with me and we can set something up. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. Feel free to contact me at any time and I can help you out. All right, that's going to be it. Thank you so much.
I'm falling with you. I'm standing with you.